They rejected me for my sister's boyfriend, then learned I was his boss. My showing up would just embarrass the entire family. That's what my dad hit me with when I simply asked, "Are we inviting the relatives for mom's birthday this year, like we always do?" Apparently, they were worried I'd somehow ruin their image in front of my sister's new boyfriend. After that, I didn't say a word. I just opened up my banking app, went through every automatic payment I'd been covering for them over the last 2 years, and canceled them, one by one. A month passed before they realized just how much I actually mattered. But by then, the damage was done. I didn't accept their apologies, not a single one. That was the moment I decided to stop living for them and start living for myself. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and comment, you'll help me a lot. So yeah, this is my story. Maybe as you read along, you'll find a piece of your own in it. Hey there, I'm Ethan. I'm 30 and I live in a quiet little town about 40 minutes outside of Seattle. Every morning I make myself a cup of coffee, flip on the weather report and head out to work. My office is less than 10 miles from my place. I helped start a small tech company that's focused on renewable energy. Most people don't really get what I do, not even my own family. They still picture me with a wrench in hand, fixing machines or fiddling with wires. But I've never felt the urge to set the record straight. Doesn't seem worth it. Sometimes when folks ask me about my family, my parents, or my sister, Sophie, I just smile a little and say, "It's been a while since we talked." And I leave it at that. Not because I'm trying to hide anything, but because retelling the whole thing feels pointless now. I haven't spoken to any of them in over 2 years. No phone calls. No text messages. No holidays, no birthday wishes. Nothing. Just this long, empty silence, like the cord between us snapped one day and no one even tried to tie it back together. There was a time when I truly believed family meant everything. But that belief cracked on my mom's birthday 2 years ago. Let me rewind a bit. 3 weeks before her birthday, I just booked my flight and cleared my schedule at work. The plan was simple: fly home a couple of days early, stick around to help out with the usual prep like I'd done every other year. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to give them a heads up. I called my mom first thing. But my dad was the one who answered, picked up after just 2 rings. "I'm coming in 2 days early," I said, keeping it casual. "Let me know if there's anything you need me to grab or help out with." At first, he was vague, non-committal. Then there was this weird pause. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded strange, heavier, like he was carrying something he didn't want to say. "Ethan," he started, slow and hesitant, "if you can, maybe don't come home this year." For a second, I thought he was just being considerate of my work schedule or something. "It's okay, Dad," I told him, still cradling my warm coffee mug. "Everything's squared away, I've got the time." But then there was another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, firmer, colder. "Sophie's bringing her boyfriend home this year," he said. "He's a manager. Polished. Carries himself well, speaks like he belongs somewhere. And you, well, your job doesn't exactly make for easy conversation. So it's probably best if you don't come." In that moment, I felt this wave of heat rise up the back of my neck, spreading to my face. My chest tightened and my grip on the coffee mug instinctively tightened too. "What the hell did you just say?" I snapped, my voice cracking with disbelief. "You're seriously saying that to me right now?" He didn't backpedal. Didn't try to soften the blow. He just came right out with it, sharp and blunt. "If you show up, you'll just embarrass the whole family. And if you still insist on coming, don't bother calling me your father." Then, just like that, he hung up. I set the phone down slowly. My hand was trembling, slick with sweat. The apartment was dead silent. No background noise. No They rejected me for my sister's boyfriend, then learned I was his boss. My showing up would just embarrass the entire family. That's what my dad hit me with when I simply asked, "Are we inviting the relatives for mom's birthday this year, like we always do?" Apparently, they were worried I'd somehow ruin their image in front of my sister's new boyfriend. After that, I didn't say a word. I just opened up my banking app, went through every automatic payment I'd been covering for them over the last 2 years and canceled them, one by one. A month passed before they realized just how much I actually mattered. But by then, the damage was done. I didn't accept their apologies, not a single one. That was the moment I decided to stop living for them and start living for myself. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and comment, you'll help me a lot. So yeah, this is my story. Maybe as you read along, you'll find a piece of your own in it. Hey there, I'm Ethan. I'm 30 and I live in a quiet little town about 40 minutes outside of Seattle. Every morning I make myself a cup of coffee, flip on the weather report and head out to work. My office is less than 10 miles from my place. I helped start a small tech company that's focused on renewable energy. Most people don't really get what I do, not even my own family. They still picture me with a wrench in hand, fixing machines or fiddling with wires. But I've never felt the urge to set the record straight. Doesn't seem worth it. Sometimes when folks ask me about my family, my parents, or my sister, Sophie, I just smile a little and say, "It's been a while since we talked." And I leave it at that. Not because I'm trying to hide anything, but because retelling the whole thing feels pointless now. I haven't spoken to any of them in over 2 years. No phone calls. No text messages. No holidays, no birthday wishes. Nothing. Just this long, empty silence, like the cord between us snapped one day and no one even tried to tie it back together. There was a time when I truly believed family meant everything. But that belief cracked on my mom's birthday 2 years ago. Let me rewind a bit. 3 weeks before her birthday, I just booked my flight and cleared my schedule at work. The plan was simple: fly home a couple of days early, stick around to help out with the usual prep like I'd done every other year. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to give them a heads up. I called my mom first thing, but my dad was the one who answered, picked up after just 2 rings. "I'm coming in 2 days early," I said, keeping it casual. "Let me know if there's anything you need me to grab or help out with." At first, he was vague, non-committal. Then there was this weird pause. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded strange, heavier, like he was carrying something he didn't want to say. "Ethan," he started, slow and hesitant, "if you can, maybe don't come home this year." For a second, I thought he was just being considerate of my work schedule or something. "It's okay, Dad," I told him, still cradling my warm coffee mug. "Everything's squared away, I've got the time." But then there was another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, firmer, colder. "Sophie's bringing her boyfriend home this year," he said. "He's a manager. Polished. Carries himself well, speaks like he belongs somewhere. And you, well, your job doesn't exactly make for easy conversation. So, it's probably best if you don't come." In that moment, I felt this wave of heat rise up the back of my neck, spreading to my face. My chest tightened and my grip on the coffee mug instinctively tightened too. "What the hell did you just say?" I snapped, my voice cracking with disbelief. "You're seriously saying that to me right now?" He didn't backpedal. Didn't try to soften the blow. He just came right out with it, sharp and blunt. "If you show up, you'll just embarrass the whole family. And if you still insist on coming, don't bother calling me your father." Then, just like that, he hung up. I set the phone down slowly. My hand was trembling, slick with sweat. The apartment was dead silent. No background noise. No footsteps. Just me standing there in the middle of the room, staring off like I'd been punched in the gut and the world had gone still. His words kept looping in my head, clear as day. Over and over. Like some cruel recording that wouldn't stop playing. "You coming home would just humiliate the entire family. And if you still plan on showing up, don't bother calling me your father." For a second, I actually questioned whether I'd heard him right. But no, there was no mistake. Every word he said was sharp, cold, and unflinching. There wasn't a hint of regret in his voice, no stumble, no second-guessing. He meant every syllable. My jaw tightened. My throat felt like it had locked up, like something hard had lodged itself in there and wouldn't go down. That's when the memories started to hit me one after another. I'd been quietly paying their bills this whole time. Electricity, internet, water, all of it. For over 2 years, I'd covered everything. Never once did they acknowledge it. And now they had the nerve to call me an embarrassment. Still trembling a little, I picked up my phone. My hands weren't steady, but my thoughts were starting to freeze over, becoming clearer, colder. I pulled up my banking app and scrolled straight to my transaction history. I just needed to see the number. That's all. I needed to know how much I'd spent on them over the past couple of years. Power bill, water, Wi-Fi, every single month without fail. I never missed a payment. Each one went out like clockwork, right on time. It came to nearly $400 a month automatically withdrawn from my account. Month after month. For 2 solid years. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom of the list. Final total, $9,842.17. I stared at that number for a few seconds longer than I expected, not because I was shocked, but because something inside me had suddenly gone still. Not angry. Not even sad. Just hollow. Almost $10,000. That's what I gave them. Quietly. And still, they called me the shame of the family. As I looked through that long, repetitive list of charges, a quiet question started forming in my mind. One that, in 3 decades, I had never really stopped to consider. Has Sophie ever done this much for our parents? It wasn't about jealousy. I wasn't fishing for praise or recognition. I needed to understand. If I was such a disgrace to them, who were they comparing me to? Because I had poured nearly 10 grand into their living expenses. Never asked for a thank you. Never even brought it up. Just handled it because they needed help. And her? Did she ever have to give anything up for them? Did she ever ask how they were doing financially? Or did she just show up looking picture perfect, flash a sweet smile, and leave a good impression in a stylish dress with some polished guy on her arm? I wasn't keeping score, I swear I wasn't. But for the first time, I realized something about my family that cut deeper than anything they'd said. Fairness? That was never part of the deal. I'd been playing the background role since I was a kid. In family pictures, I was always halfway out of the frame, blocked behind someone, or looking away from the camera like I didn't quite belong. No one ever told me to step aside. But somehow I always did. Every major moment seemed to center around Sophie. Birthday parties, graduations, even her messy breakups, everything was about comforting her, supporting her, celebrating her. And me? I honestly can't remember the last time anyone asked how I was doing. Sophie's older than me by 2 years, but the gap between us had nothing to do with age. She was the golden child. The one with potential. The one our parents boasted about when relatives came around. Me? If I got mentioned at all, it was in passing. Ethan? Yeah, he's doing okay, something with computers, I think. I used to really believe that if I just kept my head down, worked hard, avoided trouble, and took care of everything quietly, then maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see me. But they didn't. And you know what I've learned? When you've spent your whole life being invisible, it turns out no one even notices when you're gone. The first time I covered their utility bills was almost 2 years ago. It started with a phone call from my mom. I remember it clearly. She was telling me how much the cost of living had gone up, how this month's bills were higher than usual, and how their retirement checks just weren't stretching far enough anymore. Then, gently, almost like she was afraid to ask, she said, if you could help us out a little, it would really mean a lot. I said yes. Back then, I figured it'd just be for a few months. Just something to help them out until things leveled off. But month after month, nothing changed. Every bill looked just like the one before it. And no one ever brought up stopping. There was no backup plan. No thanks, we've got it from here. Every once in a while, I'd ask, gently, is Sophie helping out at all? Mom always danced around it. Sometimes she'd say, just help us this month, okay? Your sister will pitch in next time. Other times it was, she's covering your dad's medical stuff. That's not easy either. I heard those excuses so many times I could probably repeat them in my sleep. And every time I just nodded, smiled faintly, and let it go. Deep down, I already knew the truth. So I kept going. Month after month. Nearly $400 quietly pulled from my account like clockwork. No complaints. No reminders. No credit. Just consistency. It's not that I didn't care. I did. I truly did. I just believed it was the right thing to do. I kept thinking if I stayed quiet, if I stayed responsible, reliable, maybe eventually they'd look at me differently. But now? After everything? They look at me and call me the shame of the family. After I hung up that day, after the apartment fell silent and my heartbeat finally slowed, I just sat there. Still. Frozen on the couch like time had stopped. My phone was still in my hand, but my emotions had all gone quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. Not even hurt. What I felt was simple. Solid. That's enough. I opened the banking app again, found the section where I'd set up those monthly payments. Electricity. Water. Internet. One by one, I tapped into each account and canceled them. No hesitation. No second thoughts. I didn't do it out of spite. I wasn't trying to prove a point or even settle the score. I did it to protect the one thing I still had left, my self-respect. The only thing they hadn't managed to chip away at. Not yet. About a week later, I got a message from Mom. Same gentle tone she always used. No mention of what had happened. No apology. Nothing about what Dad said. Just a casual request like nothing had changed. Hi honey. I just got a notice that the internet bill's due. Can you take care of it? I stared at the message for a while. Then I put my phone down without replying. Not because I wanted to send a message, but because after everything that had happened, that was the first thing she thought to say. Not, are you okay? Not, can we talk? Just a request to pay the damn internet bill. So I stayed quiet. And in that silence, I think I finally said everything I needed to. 2 weeks later, my dad called. Let it ring. Didn't pick up. A few minutes later, I saw a voicemail come through. I played it once, just to be sure I heard him right. The power company called. This month's bill hasn't been paid. What's going on? Same tone as always, sharp, clipped, impatient. Still no concern. Still no mention of what he said that day when I offered to come home for Mom's birthday. Still no sign he even remembered. I locked the screen and laid the phone face down on the table. Didn't call back. Didn't explain. And just like that, I stayed silent all the way through to my mother's birthday. 3 weeks after the day my father told me not to come home, the party went on same as always. Mom got her favorite roasted chicken, the same bakery cake she loved every year. A few close relatives showed up, dressed nice and smiling around the dinner table. Everything looked perfectly normal. Everything was in its place. Except me. That afternoon, right at 4 p.m., I was sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee in hand. It had gone cold long ago, but I hadn't noticed. I was just sitting there, still watching the light shift on the wall when my phone buzzed. Mom. Her name lit up on the screen. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I set the phone down. Didn't answer. Didn't even think twice about it. A few minutes later, Dad called. Then Sophie. 3 calls in under 10 minutes. I let them all ring. No curiosity. No panic. Just calm. I stayed right where I was, leaning back into the chair, eyes drifting toward the fogged-up window, watching the gray sky melt into itself. The sky outside had gone a dull, lifeless gray. Not a drop of rain, just that quiet kind of cold that creeps in slow, like winter brushing its fingers along your front door. 10 minutes passed. Then the messages started. The first one was from Mom. Ethan, the power's been shut off. The whole house is dark. Please pay the bill. I picked up my phone and read it in silence. There was no anger in me. No surprise. Just a quiet hollowness settling in my chest, like a space I used to fill with purpose had been carved clean out. That's the kind of emptiness you get when you've spent years quietly holding up a family that never noticed. Or worse, never cared to notice. Then Dad messaged. No water. We can't cook. Handle it now. Not a question. Not a request. Just a command. Sophie followed a minute later. Internet's down. Guests are arriving. Please fix this. Urgent. I glanced at the time, 5:12 p.m., and I remembered it clear as day. I had canceled those automatic payments 3 weeks ago. Right after Dad told me not to come back. Right after he told me if I insisted on showing up, I should never call him my father again. And now? In the middle of the birthday party, they made sure I knew I wasn't welcome at. Everything was falling apart. The lights. The water. The internet. All gone. Right when they needed them most. I didn't reply. Didn't call. I felt no need to explain anything. I just sat there, fingers wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. I stared out the window, not at anything in particular, just past it. Past the glass, past the sky, past the world I'd spent 3 decades trying to belong to. And in that stillness, the truth settled in. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because no one else was left to carry the weight. By 6 o'clock, my phone was buzzing again. This time it wasn't them, it was the others. The extended family. The kind that only shows up for holidays, gift exchanges, and the occasional potluck. The ones who somehow think they have a say in how everyone should act. The messages came in like waves. You're being disrespectful. You embarrassed your mother in front of everyone. Your sister was right. People like you shouldn't show up on a happy day. Each one landed the same. Thoughtless. Dismissive. Judging me without asking a single question. I read them all. Didn't respond to any of them. Not because I agreed, but because I was done explaining myself to people who had always chosen the loudest voices over the truth. People who saw someone like Sophie and thought that was what a good child looked like, glossy on the outside, quiet about what really mattered. I was just about to put the phone down when the screen lit up again. Aunt Lauren. A video call. Through an old app only she and I still used, probably because we were the only ones who ever thought eye contact still meant something. I paused. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I answered on the second ring. Her face appeared first, a little fuzzy from the soft yellow kitchen light behind her. A kitchen I used to know like it was my own, the cracks in the tile, the stubborn cabinet door that creaked when you opened it too fast. But something about it felt different tonight. Behind her, I could hear the clatter of silverware, light laughter, and the forced chatter of people trying too hard to act normal. She looked at me through the screen, her eyes warm but a little unsure. You're not going to pay it, are you, Ethan? Her voice wasn't sharp. She wasn't scolding. Just asking. Like she needed to understand. I looked into her eyes. When I finally spoke, my words came slow and heavy like I had to dig them out from somewhere deep inside. He told me not to come, Auntie. He said if I insisted I shouldn't call him my father anymore. I swallowed hard after that. Saying it out loud made it feel even more real. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted, scanning the room behind her like she was looking for a way to make sense of it. And then, just like that, the call turned into chaos. I heard my mother's voice in the background, louder now, cutting through the fake laughter and clinking glasses. Tell him I'm ashamed of him. On this day of all days. How could he do this? That was my mother's voice, sharp, shaky, and full of hurt that sounded more about control than pain. Then my father chimed in, louder, angrier. It's not that serious. Just paying a couple of bills. What kind of man gets petty over money? Another voice joined in, probably my uncle. Poor Sophie, having to deal with a brother like that. I watched the screen as footsteps echoed toward the camera. Sophie appeared behind Aunt Lauren, arms folded tight, her mouth curled in a scowl. He even answered the call. Can you believe that? Mom's been crying all day. Does he even care? Seriously, no shame at all. Still, I didn't say a word. I just sat there, holding on to my silence like it was the only armor I had left. The only thing that could protect me from the flood of voices that had never actually listened. Just as I reached to end the call, someone else leaned into frame. A young guy, hair combed neatly, suit too sharp for a casual family party. His face showed a flicker of uncertainty, then a small, polite smile. Hey, boss. His voice was gravelly, like even he wasn't sure those words belonged in that moment. I froze. Fingers gripped the phone a little tighter, heartbeat picking up, not from nerves, but from surprise. That one word, boss, felt like a spark in a room full of gas. I hadn't expected him. Not tonight. Not here. Not in the house where I was declared a disgrace just for existing the way I do. I stared at him, puzzled, until it clicked. His face. His voice. Of course. He was one of the new hires from our southern office, just transferred a few months ago. We traded emails, he'd submitted a couple of reports. I hadn't thought much of it. I had no idea he was Sophie's boyfriend. The one the whole family had been fawning over for weeks. The one they'd said was such a good fit. Suddenly, the background noise behind Aunt Lauren quieted, like the kitchen itself was holding its breath. She turned her head slightly, eyes darting. Then came a soft voice, somewhere off camera. Wait, what did he just call Ethan? Another whisper, just as unsure. Boss? Did he say Ethan is Sophie's boyfriend's boss? The room shifted. The energy flipped. The murmurs started, soft, overlapping, curious now instead of cruel. But I didn't flinch. I didn't defend myself. I didn't correct anyone. I just sat there and waited, letting the moment stretch. And then the young man straightened up, like he realized what just happened. He turned away from the screen, speaking louder now, voice cutting through the kitchen like a clean blade. In case anyone doesn't know, I work at Pacific Terra Tech. Mr. Ethan is one of the company's co-founders. The words landed with a weight that silenced everything. No awkward coughing. No fake recovery. Just stillness. Not discomfort, disbelief. I didn't say a thing. Just pressed my lips together and gave a small nod. Nothing boastful. Just quiet truth. The guy turned back to the screen, eyes a little wider now, and I finally spoke. My voice calm, smooth, like the words had been waiting for the right moment to leave my chest. Hope your big introduction goes off without a hitch. Then I ended the call. That night I slept. Really slept. No tossing, no late-night spirals. No waking up in a sweat with old memories shouting in the dark. For the first time in years I felt light. Not because I'd won anything, but because now, finally, they knew. They knew who I really was. The next morning, before the light had fully slipped through the curtain slats, I reached for my phone. A few meeting reminders. Updates from accounting. Nothing unusual. Then I saw a name I didn't recognize in the sender field. Liam Carter. I tapped the email open. The first line hit straight away. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were Sophie's brother. I blinked, then kept reading. I've always respected you at the company. I raised an eyebrow, leaned back into the pillow. He explained that he'd been genuinely surprised to learn I was related to Sophie. He didn't tiptoe around it. Didn't sugarcoat. I didn't expect her to be like that. I'll be ending this relationship. Thank you for not putting me on the spot in front of everyone. I let the phone rest on my chest, eyes closed for a moment, just breathing. Then, after a few minutes, I opened my inbox again and typed my reply. Slowly, clearly, without wrapping it in any kind of performance. Liam, that's your decision. I don't expect anyone to make choices just to stay in my good graces. Think carefully before doing anything. And for the record, I don't bring family into the workplace. I hit send. No second thoughts. No swirling emotions. It was enough. Some things, once they're out in the open, don't need any more attention. Around 10 a.m., just as I wrapped up a meeting with the department heads and started collecting my notes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Sophie. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then hit decline. It wasn't about anger. It wasn't some kind of power move. I didn't ignore her call to prove anything. I just didn't have the energy anymore for apologies that only show up when everything's already broken. When the damage is done, and the silence finally starts to echo. 5 minutes later, a text popped up. I'm sorry. I didn't think Liam would react like that. You're his boss. If you talk to him, I know he'd listen. Please, just ask him to come back to me. I read it once, then again, walked over to the hallway window, leaned against the glass, and stared out for a moment. Then I started typing. Not long, not dramatic, just enough to make the point. Liam didn't walk away because I told him to. He left because of how you treat people, how you carry yourself like everyone else is small, how you speak gently just to steer people like they're chess pieces. He saw it. And that's why he left. I hit send, slipped my phone into my pocket, walked back to my desk. Less than a minute later, another ping. I know I messed up, but this time I mean it. I'll change. Please, just this once. Believe me. I read it, sat with it, felt nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood. The real distance between two people doesn't come from the apology itself. It comes from when the apology shows up. And sometimes it shows up too late. I quietly deleted the message, left nothing behind, then turned back to the life that was still moving forward, one breath at a time. A week later, Friday afternoon, I came in from the garage and froze the second I stepped onto the porch. My parents were standing at my front door, each holding a small suitcase, faces tired, eyes heavier than usual. I didn't ask why they were there. If they'd flown all the way out, it wasn't for coffee and small talk. I unlocked the door, stepped aside, and let them in. No tension, no tight smiles, no rehearsed hellos, just a choice. I didn't want to have this conversation out in the wind. We sat in the living room. The tea I'd made earlier was still letting off steam on the table. My father spoke first. His voice was calmer than usual. He apologized. Then my mom joined in, said they'd taken time to think. Maybe they'd gone too far. Maybe things never should have gotten this bad. I didn't say a word. I just listened. I needed to know if this apology was a true ending, or just the setup for another beginning. And, of course, my father's tone shifted. We're family, Ethan. Family helps each other. We raised you, paid for school. Everything you have now, a part of that comes from us, right? I looked at him. No expression change. Just a subtle shift in posture, shoulders up, spine straight. Then my mom, voice soft, like she was asking for something completely reasonable. If you could, maybe send about $2,000 a month. Just a little support. It's not much. For someone like you. I stared at them. These were the same people who once made it very clear I was an embarrassment. The same ones who pushed me out of family dinners, birthdays, holidays, because they didn't like who I was or how I lived. And now they were sitting in my living room, attaching a price to their apology. A fixed amount, $2,000 a month. Not because they were struggling, but because, in their eyes, my success wasn't mine, it was a debt I owed them. I let out a small laugh. Not sarcastic. Not bitter. Just that kind of low chuckle you give when someone tells you a story that makes zero sense. They looked at me, waiting, like they actually expected a nod. But I wasn't angry. I was too far past that. There's a place you get to where anger just doesn't stick anymore. I leaned back into the chair, my voice steady and clear. What about Sophie? How much is she contributing every month? And the room froze. The air went tight. My father looked to my mother. She hesitated, voice dropping. Your sister's job. It's still a bit unstable. And the breakup with Liam. It's been really hard on her. I nodded slightly, not because I was surprised. I'd heard the script before. Same excuses, different day. Wrapped in concern, but all deflection. I met their eyes. No emotion on my face, just clarity in my words. If she agrees to support you with $2,000 a month, I'll do the same. No more, no less. They didn't say a word, just stared at me like they were trying to figure out if I was actually serious. I stayed calm and kept going. Or, if you'd rather I cover the full amount, I'll need something in writing.